Do this one as well. Might as well just record it all. Pardon?
You're gonna offend someone.
I hope I don't offend anyone. I don't
Somebody
remember
will
what
be
I said.
offended.
I hope we do offend somebody. That means we're doing it right. Okay, does anybody want to read? Let's start with a deep breath of life. Who wants to read?
Want that one?
Gabe's got it.
Anybody want this one?
I'll read that one.
You reading it? Oh.
You want to read it?
What day is today?
I'll read it. I'll read it.
17.
17?
I'll just forget to move it for the weekend. Sorry about that.
There you are. Wherever you go, there you are. My friend Hill left his lucrative practice as an electrician in Southern California to move to a remote jungle section of Maui, where he rents a tiny ramshackle cabin for $100 a month and collects unemployment. Hill did some electrical work for me because he needed the income to pay his phone bill. But I thought you lived out in the jungle, I questioned him. I do, but I have this massive addiction to talking to people on my computer. You have a computer in your shack? I ran a line through the bush and got a state-of-the-art computer, but then I got into trouble. I was totally compulsive about communicating with people all around the world, and I ran my phone bill up to $900. I told the phone company to cut me off. It was unmanageable. This was no mild addiction. It was mainlining. They might as well have just wired the phone line into me intravenously. I could escape LA, but I couldn't escape myself. Geographical cures rarely work. You can extricate yourself from a place, but you cannot escape your own thoughts. Move somewhere to get away from an uncomfortable situation, and you will likely recreate the drama with a new set of actors playing the same roles. Heal your mind, and you are free anywhere. Dr. Michael Rice, teacher, a seminar called Why Is This Happening to Me Again? You leave New York to get away from painful relationship, Dr. Rice illustrates, and the person who picks you up at the airport in Los Angeles completes the sentence the person in New York began. Our first and foremost responsibility is to face ourselves and heal our minds and hearts. Then we may go anywhere and live in peace. I pray to be unafraid to look within and find the light I am. I create my world with my consciousness. I choose to live in peace.
The beginning of that just reminded me of something when I was just graduated high school. My friends and I decided we were going to drive from here through Mexico. We went for 3.5 months driving all the way to Belize and Guatemala and back up the Pacific coast, and had an amazing time in Mexico. But the only guidebook I've ever gotten in my life was the People's Guide to Mexico. And the beginning statement on it was, wherever you go, there you are. And you just remind me of that. Because it was, he said, you could use this for toilet paper, you could use it as a pot holder. It was the best book I've ever gotten, actually, because it was a guy that had driven around Mexico and just lived and met people over the years, and he wrote that book, and it was fantastic, really. But it gave me an insight of wherever you go, there you are. You are still you, no matter what, in every place. In your chiropractic office, it's impossible to hide. That's why a lot of what we're talking about is being authentic, being ourselves. You know, every being has gone through something. They are not alone, you're not alone. When we are creating this energy together too, this is a lifetime thing. You might know me through school, we may never talk again, I don't know. But we could, if you called me in 20 years and said, hey, this is Gabriel, hey, what's up? It would be like we'd never been apart. I almost guarantee you that. It's happened to me. It happens over and over again. I love it because we're chiropractors, but we're never alone. But we can never be away from ourselves. So the more we get in touch with our stuff, the junk that we live in, the easier it is to live in this world and say, okay, that's something that's just not serving me. I'm going to flip the switch. This morning, I thought myself, I was like, it was 5 o'clock this morning. We were at Aquatica all day yesterday with 2 little kids. It is no relaxing whatsoever. And I thought, man, it'd be nice to sleep in. And I said, I'll just wait for my alarm to go off this morning. I didn't set an alarm, but I didn't realize it because I said, I'll just get up. And it was 5:30, and my alarm hadn't gone off. And I thought, well, I should just get up and just do it. And brush my teeth, comb my hair, just joking, and get myself together. I really want to be here now. I flipped the switch from I'm tired, I don't feel like this, blah, 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 the self-talk. That's a simple one. I mean, we've all had it. I usually got it before taking tests at school. I don't feel like taking that stupid test today. But then just flipping the switch. I'm 100%, I'm ready to go, I'm prepared for it. Let's do it, let's rock this thing out, right? The self-talk, the negative, sometimes where did we get it from? Why did I just say that to myself? Adding to our own vices, right? Well, you know, it was a bad day and I'm just gonna eat a whole tub of ice cream or whatever it might be, who knows? Yes, ice cream, who knows, whatever it is.
Sometimes it's okay.
Sometimes, whatever.
It's not every night.
But the switch we flip, being able to do that on demand, it's not easy because you'll hear a lot of stuff. It's why we go to DE, it's why we do things to get dipped back into the principle, because you hear so much outside world stuff that sometimes it gets harder to flip that switch. It's just like, oh geez, whatever it is, some school shooting or blah, 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 hurricanes coming, who knows, whatever it is, you know. We get stuck in the same modes. It's being able to flip that switch easier and easier day to day. Or even just having a group of people, okay, I know those guys are coming this morning, I'm 100%, I'm ready to go. And I realized without even trying yesterday, I laid my clothes out for myself this morning, but I did it last night out of habit. Like, I'm ready to go, boom, boom, I don't have to think this morning, you know, so.
Same thing for me. Same thing for me.
It just gets turned into a motor action. Takes one of those steps out, okay, what am I gonna wear today? Asking my daughter, what shirt do you like? And she would definitely pick the pink flamingos. So.
It's catching yourself in the moment too.
That's a
Being
good
able
one.
to catch yourself because
Yeah,
sometimes
It's easy to spin off with it.
Yeah.
it's not- the problem is maybe not getting angry, it's how long you remain angry. Because a person
Great.
might trigger you something, but then if you get into the habit of like, oh, let me criticize him for saying that, or let me, you put in motion a chain of very,
and
very
then you
bad-
drag it out.
Yeah.
And it's also good to kind of release it, and I know that people say, oh, well, you gotta control your anger, but they say that the people that, when they get angry and they kind of yell in the moment, that, you know, if someone cuts them off, they're like yelling, something like that, but they released it, and then they're over it quickly. But people who, there's a lot of people, they say people who hold it in and they don't say that, and they let it go longer,
Manifest.
it's much worse. So it's like those people you think are out of control when they get really angry, but in that moment they're angry and then they're over it. You know, it's just like that left.
She just described me doing
There you go.
I'm the like.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also, I think that the book said that no matter where you go, like you're taking yourself with you. So if you have something, like for example, your mom, and you don't like that character, or your dad, or whatever, it doesn't matter if you try to like hide it. Wherever you go, you're gonna find it again because you're not over it. So you have to like go within yourself and like deal with it.
A lot of, like, even just the cut off, or someone just pisses you off, a lot of times it's a vision of ourself
Yeah.
that we don't love at the moment in that other person, and it's really reflecting back on ourself. So the more we're all able to label that, the easier it is to flip the switch. I'm gonna be absolutely honest with you guys today. Yesterday,
I'm like, oh boy.
I'm gonna tell you a story, but you know what? It was a frustrating morning yesterday for us to leave to go to Aquatica, because we have rental properties, of course our office, but my wife's company that's what she does. And there is problem, okay? First thing in the morning on Father's Day, on Sunday, text. It's like, you know? And one of them was Spectrum, which was our cable company.
Wow.
Everybody lost internet. They're worse than AT&T. And I don't want to advertise either one of them. So it's the call, it's the this, and I just felt like venting, and I vented on one of the guys. I'm like, la 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 la, driving the car on, you know, whatever. And I just took a breath at the end and I said, you know what? I love you and I apologize, have a nice day, and I hung up on the guy. But I did, I got it out.
He was probably like, whoa.
I was like, what in the world happened here?
Bipolar.
And that's
I don't
why
think
you can't
anybody's
say-
gotten all my anger except as much as
Spectrum.
Spectrum or AT&T.
Oh my
They've gotten the
goodness.
worst parts of me.
So
Yep.
true.
Yep.
The worst. Like, I've never been as angry as I've been at AT&T.
I might have to
true.
agree with you on that.
It's just those two companies.
It's
Yeah.
funny,
Everybody
that
else
is so
is like
funny.
so easy to
Yeah.
deal with.
Yes.
But you know, after you vent on them, you know, letting it go, it's like, damn, I felt pretty good after that.
I usually I'll get mad at one and I'll like go off and I'm like, and then I'll call back and
You
then
had a
somebody
great
else
day.
and like they help me with my problem. real quick.
Yeah, how does that work?
Yes.
Yeah,
You know what?
yeah. The next person's like, oh yeah, I know what to do.
And then
Boom,
you're
boom,
like,
boom. And you're
why
like,
didn't that happen 3 people ago?
But
Yeah.
getting to yes and not giving up and getting to yes, eventually you will get to the yes person.
Yes.
You know, that's an important philosophy. There's a book called Getting to Yes, and I think they mention that in A Deep Breath of Life, is that you just keep trying, and then you will get to the yes person. So that's interesting too,
I've
actually.
literally done that before. Just
Mhm.
hang up on them like,
Yeah.
oh, I said, this is not personal. This I have to let you go. And hang up, call right back.
And you thank God that this is not live, you know what I mean? It's confronted to some incidents here.
And just don't take anything personal because you
That's
don't
a
know
big
what the other person is going through.
And that is part of the 4 agreements,
Yeah.
right? So, use and uselessness of illness, we read that first paragraph. I'm gonna read number 1 here of that, okay? You get excused from school, work, and doing things you don't want to do, number 1. When you didn't want to go to elementary school, you either faked being sick, I did it, or if you had liberal parents, they let you stay at home because you wanted to. The next day, you brought a note to your teacher. Please excuse Linda for being absent from school yesterday. She had a fever. As your teacher nodded and sent you to your desk without punishment, you learned that illness buys you a reprieve. If you had brought your teacher a note saying, please excuse Linda for being absent in school yesterday, she finds school boring
Oh boy.
and preferred to stay home. You and your parents would have gotten in a lot of trouble. So you learned that it was more expedient to be sick and play sick than to tell a truth that might cause upset or get you in trouble. Sickness is a defense against the truth. At some point, that dynamic established itself at an unconscious level, and illness assumed the power to excuse. Course in Miracles, lesson 136. The same process replicates itself in adult life. If, for example, you have to cancel a flight, the only way to get your money back is to produce a note from a doctor saying that you were ill. Doctor's notes get you out of jail free cards in the Monopoly game of life. But your freedom is not really without cost. To keep exemption in force, you must bear pain. Is it worth it? There are easier ways and more direct ways to say no than to play or be sick. Coaching client told me that after her divorce, she had gained a lot of weight and now wanted to lose it. I asked her, what benefit do you get from keeping the weight on? I believe it makes me less attractive to men, she replied. The end of my marriage and my divorce were horrible, and I am not ready for a relationship. Then perhaps you could simply choose not to be in a relationship without needing the weight to say no for you, I suggested. She loved the approach as a more direct and practical tool than keeping the weight on as a defense against relationship pain. The next one is 2. Oh, I'm going to read 2. 2, you get attention from sympathy. When you were sick as a kid, your mom stayed home from work to take care of you. She brought you food in bed. You got to watch TV during the day. You got ice cream for dessert. Adult illnesses earn different kind of attention, but the dynamic is identical. Okay, the next 3 is very long, so we're going to stop there. We just talked about last time you guys were here about the woman that came in and her identity was, I'm frail, I'm sick, all the surgeons, she knew all by name, everything else. And one adjustment, her body, you could see everything change in her body. And I kind of just got that clue that this is her identity. This is it. And I brought it out in our talk in the morning, and she hasn't been back. She's called with excuses. Oh, my husband is very powerful and, works, and he's unable to bring me. If her husband wanted her well, he might have a big life insurance policy on her, I don't know, but he would do everything he could to get her here. There is this magical app called Uber that
Right.
makes
I was
it
like, ooh,
very
what's this
easy,
new app?
right? Oh, what's the new app?
What is it?
Uber. And then there's Lyft, and then a good old taxi. But,
I don't know, she might require a private car.
if you wanted to be well, you can be well. If you wanted to be sick, you're sick. My friend's grandmother, I remember as a kid, she was always sick. I mean, always complaining about everything. She lived to like 99 years old, and but she was constantly ill. She didn't live a vibrant 99 years because all she did was complain. I really didn't think she would live that long. But the last days of her life, I did see her and went to visit her, and she did say, and I felt this in her heart, is they revived her, and then she was paralyzed basically from like mid-chest down. She didn't feel anything, couldn't move. And she did say, she was, why did they bring me back? I really wanted to just let go. She wanted to die a long time before that even. But I could understand really where she was now at that point, where she was actually ill, not just trying to not working for attention, working to get, that's how she got sympathy probably since a child, that's how she got her sympathy. But at the very end, that was a real one, and I felt that together. It was in one of the rehabs or hospitals I went to visit her. But we go through those things. I've pictured it in myself. I've seen it myself, vocabulary, and then now I'm at a point where, why did I say that? Maybe I don't say it as I used to. I can't even think of it for instance, but where did that vocabulary come from me? It came from programming in the past. I'm gonna change that programming right now. That I am really well. Everything, I might have, the tips of my toes might really hurt from being in Aquatica and dragging them all over this place, but I'm really well. My body is healthy. I'm not gonna spend my day thinking about how my toes hurt. Even my elbows, or Alexandra will tell you, there's days my back is hurt. If I sat and complained, because the reality is while I'm giving the adjustment, I feel I'm in perfection. Not imperfect, but I am in perfection because my body is whole. I stop sometimes if you get the flare up, something happens. I've come in with all sorts of colds, I hate to say it, but even diarrhea, my body's not feeling well, but I still came in and served. I don't have someone to call in sick to, but I can call in well, and I will be well as I'm serving. And very often those days are not the busiest days ever, because Spirit's also nurturing me. When I'm nurturing myself, I'm also being fed. And those are days, every day is what I can handle. Mother Teresa said, I know God wouldn't give me anything that I couldn't handle. I just wish he didn't trust me so much. And that was a beautiful quote, and I think about that every day. And I'm being given what I can handle. Some days, and I those are more and more those days coming in my life, but there are days this is what's right for me. And I trust the process. I trust how things are happening in this world instead of condemning myself of why whatever happens. And a lot of people, if you read the book of Job, and people think that is a very depressing book, I think it's a very uplifting book, really. He went through a lot, but he was condemning himself. Poor me, wah, 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 I wish I'd never lived, why was I ever born, poor me. But once he flipped that switch, he was abundant again. Of thank you, God, for whatever I have is absolutely perfect. And he prayed for the people that condemned him. Oh, you must be doing crappy work, you must be doing this, you must be doing that. That's why you're getting what you get. But once he flipped himself and said, thank you for what I have, everything is well, and you read the rest of Job as, you know, him living in abundance, how many of his children he had, you know, more wealth plus, and everything else. Once we flip that switch of poor me being the victim and everything else. So with health, wealth, vitality, relationships, all those things. So I'm gonna read that again. I love that book.
Do we have our Proverbs book for this?
Do you wanna read that this morning? Absolutely, let's do it. What day of the week is it? What day is the month is it?
It's 17th.
Mon-
I'm like,
one
what
of
was
the Mondays in June.
How can we tell someone when
What is today?
compassion,
17th.
like, oh, you're having this illness because you wanna attract attention? How do you say
Yeah, I was
that?
gonna say,
How
I'm
do
not
you-
good at recognizing things like that, like that coach was saying, what are you holding on to this weight for? And she was like, well, keeps me from being attracted to people I wanna date. And I'm trying to think, it'd be hard for me to recognize that in myself and in other
For
people.
me, well, for example,
What day is today?
with my grandmother, it's probably one of the hardest lessons for me, because she's a very, very strong character woman, what she was. And she's from Cuba, had to leave everything behind, start a new life. Her father abandoned her family, all this anger, always criticizing. And then at the later stages of her life, she had this, her identity was what her doctor said, like she took like 10 pills. I was living with a naturopath. I knew how a lot of ways that could help her feel better, but she didn't want to listen to me. So, and that got me angry. And it's like, she developed bladder cancer. But all this was to get attention from her sons, because they were giving more attention to her father, to her ex-husband. And she said, I hope when I get sick, you will give me as much attention as you're giving your father, to
Like
her
before
son.
she even got sick.
Before she even got the cancer. But she like pissed. Her bladder cancer is just, she was pissed at something, at someone, and literally.
Literally.
Oh,
So
yeah.
how can
Yeah.
you say with compassion to someone, oh, you're developing this because of this? Do you even, or,
That's
Like-
not, that's a very difficult
Yeah.
thing,
so.
you know, and if they're even asking for it,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of times they'll just shut you off and then they won't even hear you.
Like my grandmother, she shut you off. She didn't want you to tell any, but you got to just be there to hug them, to love them. I think, I don't know.
That's the biggest part, is letting them know that you are there with them. I'm here for you. The other part's coming from judgment and can turn into a fight very quickly, right? Then there is bridge that gap is very difficult.
Yeah.
But
Right, go
with
back.
love, compassion, ease, that type of thing, you know, it's a slow road, and sometimes they'll become aware of it, you know. But you know, it's just loving them. It really is. Yeah. Right? So,
The more you love them, maybe the more they'll love themselves.
and they don't have to know your philosophy of the bladder cancer being pissed,
Yeah.
you know. But, you know, once they get in touch, or even just asking them, like he did, you know, how do you feel this started with you? Is it happening from you, or is it happening to you? Really, these things are happening from us, right? Or just saying, you know, I'm here to help you. What can I do to make you feel more at ease? Let's talk, like especially if it's a family member. In the office, it's not really easy to do that. Because I don't sit down and spend 45 minutes with someone, you know? But, you know, slowly, little bits at a time, bringing a little bit of awareness, bringing them education, all of a sudden, people start getting better. But to do something like that, like he just read, what we just read in there, it's a slippery slope. She was already his client, so what she therefore is really asking for that advice, and really that is advice, adding to her vices, or really getting connected to them, so maybe it's more input, I don't know. But what we do often is, I try and do this every day, is read Proverbs as it relates to the day of the month, okay? So since you had the suggestion, you wanted to read it, you guys ready to read it? Should I read it? Anybody else wanna read it? All right. Matter of fact, we mentioned this to O'Neill the other day. Chapter 17. Better a dry crust eaten in peace than a house filled with feasting and better a dry crust eaten in peace than a house filled with feasting and conflict. A wise servant will rule over his master's disgraceful son and will share the inheritance of the master's children. Fire tests the purity of silver and gold, but the Lord tests the heart. Wrongful doers eagerly listen to gossip. Liars pay close attention to slander. That's why gossip's so terrible. Those who mock the poor insult their maker. Those who rejoice at the misfortune of others will be punished. Grandchildren are the crowning glory of the aged. Parents are the pride of their children. Eloquent words are not fitting for a fool. Even less are lies fitting for a ruler. A bribe is like a lucky charm. Whoever gives one will prosper. Whoever gives one, we'll look at what that means. Love prospers when a fault is forgiven, but dwelling on it separates close friends. A single rebuke does more for a person of understanding than 100 lashes on the back of a fool. Evil people are eager for rebellion, but will be severely punished. It is safer to meet a bear robbed of her cubs than to confront a fool caught in foolishness. If you repay good with evil, evil will never leave your home. Starting a quarrel is like an opening floodgate to stop before a dispute breaks out. Acquitting the guilty and condemning the innocent, both are detestable by the Lord. It is sensible to pay tuition to educate a fool, since he has no heart for learning. It is senseless, to pay tuition to educate a fool, since he has no heart for learning. A friend is always loyal, and a brother is born to help in time of need. It's poor judgment to guarantee another person's debt or put security for a friend. Anyone who loves to quarrel loves sin. Anyone who trusts in high walls invites disaster. The crooked heart will not prosper. The lying tongue tumbles into trouble. It is painful to be the parent of a fool. There is no joy for a father of a rebel. A cheerful heart is good medicine. But a broken spirit saps the person's strength. The wicked take secret bribes to pervert the course of justice. Sensible people keep their eyes glued on wisdom, but fools' eyes wander to the end of the earth. Foolish children bring grief to their father and bitterness to the one who gives them birth. It is wrong to punish the godly for being good, or flog leaders for being honest. A truly wise person uses few words. A person with understanding is even-tempered. Even fools are thought wise when they keep silent. With their mouths shut, they seem intelligent. I'm just going to read this. Hope note. Seek love. Love prospers when fault is forgiven. Was that in this one? A cheerful heart is good medicine. When all is forgiven, but dwelling on it separates close friends. There is someone in your life who has wronged or offended you. Maybe it was intentional, and maybe they don't even know they've hurt you. No matter what the circumstances, the believers will be called to forgive. When we forgive, we are making possible for God to forgive us. If we don't forgive, we are turning in the opposite direction, away from God. Choosing forgiveness doesn't excuse the other person's behavior. It simply releases the debt they owe you so that God can release the debt you owe him. Forgiveness opens the door so that you can be free. Choose today to let go of the past, and look forward to the future. Choose to forgive. Once you do, the verse says, don't as the verse says, don't bring up the issue anymore. Move forward and let God be your vindicator. Remember, he promises to take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it around for your good. Whew. That was a good one. So, the lessons of life is what, Proverbs is, and it's, I think, a powerful book. And, Sigafus had us just start reading as that relates to the month. You can read more, the Bible if you want. I think it's a good book. It's worth reading. But reading Proverbs every day as it relates to the day of the month is extremely powerful. And we look in these, I'd like to go back and I look at how these books were translated, try and get back to the most early, and there are a lot of groups trying to do that. There's a codex that they found in a church in the middle of absolute nowhere, and the earliest books written by the prophets and those type of things, and then translating them. The translator has a huge power, right? So making sure they're translated well. Some have translated things into the way that they want them to be read. So looking at different translations. We were reading, I go occasionally to a Bible study at my church, and I mean, all the guys in there are 75, 80, 90 years old. There's one guy's like 97 years old in there. And I have a good time. There, I'm the youngest guy. So we have a good time talking about these things. And literally where there's an asterisk, there was one about God punishing, and then the asterisk below, the next other translation was forgiving God. There's so many different translations, we have to find our own translations and really look at them and do research and understanding those words. Even when we talk about the poor very often, it's the poor in spirit that they mention very often, not just poor in wealth, but the wealth of spirit. So knowing what we're reading and where things have come from is important. I want to read one more section. Do we have time?
I just wanted to say that God doesn't punish
37.
anyone. Like, you punish yourself by your actions and your decisions. Like, that's what I got from.
Just like we were talking about illness and all these things, punishing ourselves. I'm sick, and a lot of that comes from that self-punishment, right?
There's an Argentinian singer that says, like, if you get cancer, two things that happen: you either die, or you become a more humble person and you cure and you approach life very different. Your life changes.
Mhm.
So that's not exactly how he said it, but
You get the gist.
yeah.
What time did you say it was?
It's 8:38 right now.
38? We have time to read a little bit more. Is that all right? I'm just gonna pick a spot. I have no idea. This might be a little technical. The visceral symptoms or visceral dysfunction is a normal function that is increased or decreased beyond need. That's pretty important. And it is the immediate indicator of the VMFCPs. I don't know what that means yet.